Boredom as protective friction. Boredom arrives like an uninvited silence, not painful enough to be an emergency, not pleasant enough to be a reward. In that silence, something in us reaches for motion, for noise, for the next thing. In a system engineered for stimulation, boredom protects agency by interrupting automatic loops and returning attention to choice. The impact is not that boredom feels good. The impact is that it creates a small delay between impulse and response. That delay is a boundary, thin, often unwelcome, but real, that makes room for consent within one's own mind, the ability to decide what gets access to your attention. When boredom disappears completely, attention becomes a conveyor belt. When boredom is permitted, attention becomes a threshold again. Stimulation systems run on predictable incentives. Keep eyes on the surface, keep hands moving, keep the next click within reach. The immediate beneficiary is any actor who can convert time on task into money, influence, or status. The secondary beneficiary is the user who receives quick relief from discomfort, uncertainty, or quiet. But the cost is borne elsewhere, by the person whose attention is fragmented, by relationships reduced to partial presence, and by communities that inherit the externalities of distracted judgment. The mechanism is a feedback loop. Stimulus creates a micro-reward. The micro-reward trains the body to reach again. Each repetition lowers tolerance for stillness, making boredom feel sharper, which makes the next stimulus feel more necessary. What looks like preference can be a conditioned pathway, reinforced by metrics that reward immediate engagement rather than long-term clarity. Boredom acts as friction inside this loop. Friction is a constraint. It slows the system. It introduces delay. It makes the next step less automatic. In many designs, friction is treated as a defect, something to remove through personalization, autoplay, infinite scroll, notifications, and continuous novelty. The trade-off is straightforward. Reducing friction increases consumption and reduces the moments where a person can reevaluate whether the exchange is fair. Convenience increases access to stimulation. It also decreases the chance to renegotiate what attention is for. There is another trade-off. Stimulation can provide connection, learning, and relief, but it can also narrow the range of human experience to what is immediately rewarding. Boredom, by contrast, is often interpreted as empty time, yet it can expose hidden needs, rest, meaning, unfinished thought, or the desire to speak to someone rather than scroll past them. When the system routes every quiet moment into content, those signals are masked. The system benefits from your seamless continuity. You bear the cost of losing your own interruptions. So boredom is not merely an emotion. It is a structural feature of agency, a pause that refuses to be monetized unless you surrender it. If attention shapes behavior, identity, and outcome, then boredom is one of the last places where attention is not already spoken for. It protects dignity by insisting that a person is not only a target for capture, but a participant with capacity to withhold, to wait, to choose. That matters because agency is not just freedom from constraint. It is the ability to set constraints that reflect what one is responsible for. Work done with care, relationships treated as more than background, and time that is not entirely instrumented. A system built for stimulation often treats attention as a resource to extract. Under that logic, boredom becomes a problem to solve quickly because it interrupts throughput. But for a human life, interruption is not always failure. Sometimes it is the moment when values can be retrieved from underneath momentum. Intent is not impact. A tool can be built to entertain, connect, or inform, while still producing harm through compulsion, isolation, or diminished deliberation. Boredom can therefore function like a quiet checkpoint, not a virtue signal, and not a punishment, just a space where the self is not being continuously shaked by external prompts. In that space, responsibility becomes visible again, not as blame, but as the recognition that what enters attention leaves traces in speech, patience, and presence. Notice how quickly boredom is framed as something that must be escaped. Consider what shows up in the first seconds after stimulation stops: restlessness, hunger for novelty, a sense of absence, or a sharper awareness of the room and the people in it. Name the cost, not just the benefit of making every gap instantly fillable. Notice, too, who profits when boredom is eliminated, and who pays when the mind loses its capacity for pause. Consider which kinds of thoughts require more than a few seconds of quiet to form. Apology, gratitude, planning, moral imagination, careful reading. Name what boredom might be protecting. Not comfort, but the conditions for consent, for attention with boundaries, and for choices that have time to become real. Boredom is friction, and friction can be a form of care. Responsibility is distributed, not dissolved, and it begins in the small pauses we are allowed to keep.